What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto son of Scarecrow? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. A dull throbbing pain in his head was the first thing that young Naruto registered while coming to from the depths of unconsciousness. Was the first thought that came to his mind, quickly followed by, why is my head sore? You're finally awake. It's about time. The deep rumbling voice took Naruto by surprise. He opened his eyes and found himself sitting in shallow water. Looking around, Naruto didn't recognize any of his surroundings. In front of him was a large cage and high above a large red eye was staring down at him. I would not have drawn you to your mindscape unless I had to. I'm not sure how, but you were taken from the Leaf Village. This was a lot of information to take in. Naruto knew that he was smarter than other 6-year-olds and he was clued in enough to realize that he probably shouldn't showcase this intelligence, otherwise the villagers might find a new reason to hate him. Not that I know exactly why they hate me. I only understand that people seem to hate me since a demon attacked the village on the day I was born. Naruto got to his feet but didn't move any closer to the cage. Who are you? What do you mean by mindscape? I am the nine-tailed fox. Your consciousness is currently here, in your mindscape. It is the only way we can meet face to face. Time flows differently here since we are essentially operating at the speed of thought. This means that barely any time in the real world has passed since we started talking. When Naruto heard this, he knew this was an excellent chance where he might be able to get some answers. How are you here? Are you inside me? Why did this happen? Kurama thought hard. I don't think explaining everything about the seal now is a good idea. He seems like a good kid, at least from what I have managed to see through his eyes, but knowing that I share his pain would give him too much leverage over me. Perhaps if he earns my respect I can trust him with the truth. Even though his former host, Kushina Uzumaki's love for her family had managed to rekindle a small amount of compassion inside him, Kurama was still too wary of trusting humans with the truth, let alone his name. Instead Kurama answered, I was sealed inside of you on the day you were born by the 4th Hokage. I was trapped here against my will and you were my jailer. You should release me from here because it's the right thing to do. Naruto raised his right hand to his chin, deep in thought. He says the 4th sealed him inside of me against the fox's will. However, I know that the 4th was a great hero and wouldn't do this without a reason. A sudden brainwave struck and Naruto's eyes widened in realization. I have the fox sealed inside me. The villagers call me a demon child and always seem to hate me. On the day I was born, a demon attacked the village and lots of people died. I think the Nine Tails was behind the attack and that's why everyone hates me. Now, all I want to know now is why the 4th chose me. Naruto looked up at the fox accusingly, don't lie to me. I've figured it out, you're the one that attacked the village. I'm guessing the 4th stopped you by sealing you inside me. I don't know why the 4th chose me, but if I let you free you that means the 4th picked the wrong person. He's a hero and I can't let him down. Naruto had grown tired over the conversation and wanted to leave his mindscape. No sooner had he thought about leaving when a strange feeling began in his belly and Naruto opened his eyes, finding his body sitting on dry ground, slumped against a wall behind him as if he had been sleeping. The sound of footsteps could be heard and Naruto raised his head. Looking up in the dim light, Naruto could see an imposingly tall woman with shoulder-length brown hair. She was separated from Naruto by thick steel bars. She wore full-length black combat pants with a mesh armor shirt underneath a gray combat vest. A thin scar ran from the left corner of her mouth down to her chin. Listen up, brat. My name is Akari and I am in charge. You will do what I say or I will hurt you. The lady's voice was rough, almost as if she yelled a lot. Naruto nodded in fear. While the villagers' eyes had always held traces of anger or even fear when they looked at him, they never had the predatory look that this lady was giving him. As if she wanted to stalk him in the darkness and kill him. I have no idea where I am, but I really need to get back to the village. I'll take angry looks over this lady any day. Naruto looked around. It looked like he was in a cell, just like the ones in the Uchiha police station. A small bed of straw was in the left back corner with a small toilet in the right. Other than that, the room was bare and small. Naruto could probably cross it with 6 large steps. Suddenly the combined stress of being kidnapped, Being in fear of Akari and the alarm that his life had been completely changed and that no one would care that he was missing became too much and he started to cry. His wails echoed throughout his cell and greatly annoyed Akari. "Stop crying, it won't work on me and the sound of it is irritating," ordered Akari. When Naruto didn't stop, she sighed then formed a tiger hand sign. The floor beneath Naruto quickly heated at an accelerated pace and Naruto gave a sharp cry of pain as parts of his body got burned. He quickly got to his feet as tears poured down his face, in an attempt to escape the searing stone that was the floor of his cell. He couldn't help it, the pain had shocked him to his core. Naruto continued crying but at an even louder volume while hopping on his right foot, trying to escape the heat. Akari let out a very annoyed huff. "Look," she said sharply, "stop crying. Now, if you keep making a racket I'll just leave the floor as it is permanently. Do you want more pain, brat?" Naruto stiffened upon hearing her question. That really hurt, but she says she will leave it like that? I have to try and be quiet. Biting down on his lower lip to muffle the sobs, Naruto covered his mouth with both of his hands. Tears were running thick and fast but barely a sound could be heard from Naruto now. With Naruto quickly quieting, Akari realized her fire jutsu and the floor returned to a normal temperature. Akari gave a thin but humorless smile. "Good, that's a lot better. Now you need to know that you are my prisoner. Our shinobi took you away from Konoha without a trace. Now I'm going to ask you some questions and I need you to answer with the truth, got it?" Naruto nodded again, eyes downcast and still teary. "Good, you're a fast learner. Now tell me your name, age and how many friends and family you have," Akari said in response. "So they don't know anything about me, or do they and want to catch me lying? I guess I'll give some answers but not everything, I should try and lie a little bit. My name is Naruto Tanaka and I am 6 years old." Naruto replied softly. "And your family?" asked Akari. "They are ninja. I don't know where they are but they'll look for me." Akari let out a positive hum. "Well, that's good news. Hopefully that means any rescue attempts will be minimal at best. We just have to worry about concerned family members. We deal with them all the time. Here's the gist, brat. You are in the pit. It's an underground fighting arena where prisoners face each other in combat to the death. Once you start a fight, the only way to win is to kill your opponent. That's it. Any questions?" Naruto's mind was working at a mile a minute but thought, "I have so many questions but I don't think she will answer all of them. What is the most important thing right now? How did you manage to get past the Leaf's security to kidnap me? Also, will I be able to get my freedom? Well, I can't see any harm in telling you. I doubt you will live through your first fight. Most newbies don't. Our top ninja for kidnapping is Mako. He is highly talented in infiltration but that's about it. However, he is a man of, how do I put this delicately, unusual tastes, which is why he targets children, and other people of similar tastes exist everywhere and he is able to contact them when he needs a favor. As for your freedom, no, you will not be able to earn it. If a member of our audience takes a liking to you, they can put forth a bid to buy you but you won't be a free person again, unless the powers that be decide otherwise." As Akari finished speaking, she reached into a pouch on her belt and pulled out a key. Stepping forward, she unlocked Naruto's cell door and swung it open. "Your first fight is now. Remember, the only way out is by killing your opponent." Akari gave him savage grin as she pulled Naruto to his feet and marched out of his cell and down a corridor. They came to a large area that had some benches and long tables. It looked like a place where some people might gather and eat but Naruto wasn't able to get a good look before he was roughly directed to his left and through an open doorway into the pit. Soft earth was before him and several rows of seats were arranged in a ring above the fighting arena. The pit was around 30 meters in circumference with a 3-meter-high concrete wall separating the stands from the pit. The seats that housed the audience looked to be around half full, maybe housing around 100 people or so. On the other side of the pit, Naruto saw his first opponent. His opponent looked to be a little older than Naruto, maybe a 9 or even 10-year-old boy. The sound of metal grating upon stone grabbed his attention and Naruto turned, seeing thick steel bars lower over the doorway he had just been forced through. The call to fight was announced at a loud volume, which was met with cheers from the crowd. "Hey Naruto, I can help you here. There is no kid in the world that is able to match me. Let me fight and you can save yourself a lot of pain," Kurama said, a little careful in his wording so that he wouldn't spook the boy who was far smarter than he looked. Naruto was dubious. You already tried to trick me into freeing you, which goes against what the fourth would have wanted. I'm not going to listen to you. Naruto's opponent charged straight away, pulling back his right arm ready to punch Naruto in the face as he crossed the distance. Naruto quickly rolled to his left to avoid the punch, but his roll was sloppy and gave his opponent time to catch up to him. Naruto felt arms circle his waist and was suddenly thrown to the ground hard on his back. The wind left his lungs as he instinctively brought his arms up to protect his face. Still trying to figure out how this had happened, a sudden knee slamming into his sternum made Naruto cry out in pain. He tried to roll to his left to retch, but the weight of his opponent weighed him down. A small amount of bile rose up and splattered onto the chest of the boy on top of him. The boy gave a grunt of disgust and pulled off him to avoid any more mess. Naruto used this opportunity to roll onto his left side into a fetal position, gasping in pain. He was savagely kicked onto his stomach and felt his right arm wrenched around behind his back, and Naruto's whole world exploded into pain. You are going to pay for spewing on me, worm. I haven't seen you around here, so this must be your first fight. Too bad for you, I've won 6 fights, no one is going to kill Joshiryo, declared the boy arrogantly while flexing Naruto's arm even higher up his back. I'm going to make you suffer before I kill you. Naruto was already screaming at the top of his voice in agony, eyes clenched in a futile attempt to escape the pain. He struggled desperately, but Joshiryo was too strong for him to move. Almost impossibly, his arm was forced to go even higher, and Naruto thought he was going to die from this torture. Abruptly the pain vanished and Naruto opened his eyes in shock. He was lying in shallow water. Great, back in my mindscape. So have you changed your mind yet, kid? Asked the fox. His tone sounded even, but it wavered ever so slightly. Well, he is strong. He has to be to fight and kill the 4th Hokage. I don't know how to fight at all. I need his experience, but I don't know if I can trust him. What, are you going to tell me how to fight? I can't get out of this armhole that I'm in, asked Naruto. I can help train you to become stronger. It is only fitting that my jailer becomes strong. We both benefit here. I do have a reputation to uphold after all. The 9-tailed fox said. There is something else, but I don't know what. Surely if I die, he gets free. I need to figure out what it is, but right now I have no other choice. I can't win without his help. Fine, let's work together. I know you are hiding something, but I hope you are being honest when you say you want to help me. So long as you don't try to harm me or anyone I call my friend, we can work together. The 9-tails grumbled a little bit. This brat was trying to play him, but that wasn't really important. While in time passed differently here compared to the real world, the fact was that Naruto's body was still in pain. The entire time Kurama had been trying to ignore the agony from his host's body, but not having much success. If it had been his own body, Kurama wouldn't have even felt it, but this pain was all Naruto's, which meant Kurama's pain was both mental and proportional. His own sanity would not last much longer at this rate. As long as you agree to not intentionally harm me in return, I agree. Kurama stated in a growl. Hiding this pain was harder than he thought it would be. A brief light flashed around the mindscape and suddenly Naruto was back in the real world. Pain exploded into his conscience when red chakra engulfed his body and Naruto's struggles to get free became much stronger. Jerking his arm free, Naruto could feel the fox's presence in his mind. Quick, flare my chakra outward to make that brat fly away and get some space, the 9-tails said urgently. I don't know how to do that. I don't even know what chakra is, thought Naruto. There was a pause, then the 9-tailed fox said, we have a deal to not hurt each other. I also agreed to help you. If you let me have control for the rest of the fight, I can save us. After that I will explain everything I can. I agree with that, replied Naruto. Naruto could feel his body moving in a detached kind of way, like he was far away from it. The fox flared out his chakra and Naruto felt Joshiryo's body fly off him. Quickly getting to his feet, Naruto felt himself turn and run towards Joshiryo's still recovering body. With the fox strengthening his muscles, Naruto picked up his opponent, turning Joshiryo to face away from him, then wrapping his left arm around Joshiryo's throat, Naruto began to squeeze. Joshiryo began to panic and had both hands on Naruto's arm, trying to loosen it to get some air. However, the fox had made Naruto too strong for the young boy and soon he stopped his desperate actions and went limp. As soon as Joshiryo had died, the fox had returned control to Naruto. Naruto realized that the weight was too much for him to hold and dropped Joshirio's body. Pain still lanced through his right shoulder and he felt himself fall to his knees in shock. Naruto looked at the body next to him, staring into his lifeless eyes. That's not normal. His eyes shouldn't look like that. There should be something there. Is he really dead? Oh my god, he is. What have I done? His thoughts got cut off as he once again vomited, but this time in disgust. Before he had time to feel any worse, the sound of clapping could be heard. Naruto looked up, the crowd was applauding him. He felt sick with them and with himself. The events of everything he had suffered today caught up to him and he fainted. Finding himself back in his mindscape, Naruto sat shivering in the water. Alright kid, I guess I will have to explain some stuff before trying to teach you. Even as he sat in the shallow water of his mindscape, Naruto could tell that the Nine Tails wanted to say something, but Naruto was no state to talk. I killed someone, another boy just like me. Did he want to be here, or was he forced to fight like me? I am the demon that people call me. I'm nothing but a monster. Naruto had failed everything that he knew the fourth Hokage stood for. Surely he never imagined that I would be such a bad person. Kurama could feel Naruto's distress. Although it wasn't pain and didn't affect him, Kurama knew he had to help Naruto through this, otherwise he wouldn't be able to fight properly next time, which would result in more pain for both of them. He had to say something. The only problem was that he didn't know what to say. Kurama had always enjoyed battle, relished the feeling of power and control. He couldn't really relate to his host's feelings. Naruto, listen to me, you did nothing wrong. You defended yourself and that boy was going to kill you, remember? If you had wanted to kill him that would be different, but you didn't. Until I can make you strong enough to escape, this is our life now. Nothing will change that. Now remember, you promised to get stronger and to protect us both. Kurama said in a rough approximation of a gentle voice. Naruto heard the words and thought upon them. True, I didn't want to kill him. I did make that promise to help us both. I guess I should stop thinking about all of this. Steeling himself, Naruto suppressed his emotions down into a dark corner of his mind. It would do him no good to fall apart every time he was forced to kill someone and needed a way to get rid of this weakness. Looking back up at the fox, Naruto said evenly, okay, what did you have to explain to me? Kurama gazed down at Naruto, wondering where to begin as well how much to tell the kid. Alright Naruto, as you already figured out, I am the reason the village hates you. However, I did not want to attack your village or kill the fourth, but I was controlled by a masked man with a Sharingan. This man is now my sworn enemy and he will die. Kurama paused for breath before continuing. All you really need to know now is that I am stuck here. The seal keeping me in place is well designed and I have no chance at breaking it by myself. Therefore, I have decided to make you as strong as possible so that any enemies you face will know that they face the strongest tailed beast as well. My chakra will also heal your body when it is injured and prevent sickness. Any questions so far? Yeah, surely when I die, you will be set free. Why would you help me get stronger if you could just ignore me and be released? Kid, I have lived for a long time. I am pure chakra and therefore cannot die, in the normal sense. What happens instead is if I use too much of my own chakra, my being is dissolved and it takes a few years for my chakra to recharge enough and I am born again. This process is extremely painful and I have absolutely no wish to go through that again. Anything to delay that pain is a blessing. I still won't tell him how I feel his pain as well. To suffer his pain then his death, as well as the continual suffering for the years as my chakra recharges, no way am I willing to go through that. Naruto slowly came to face down on concrete. Pushing himself into a sitting position, he looked around and saw he was back in his cell. Kurama continued, this time talking about his plan for training. Okay, now chakra is the energy used by ninjas to fuel their jutsus. The most common form of this is the chakra formed inside one's own body. Demon containers like you can use your tailed beast's chakra as well, which is particularly useful since all tailed beasts have large chakra reserves. I want your main focus to be on learning how to use my chakra. It is the easiest place to start since I can provide information you need to know and help regulate the flow. Now you need to understand that tailed beasts do not typically fight using ninjutsu. That's not to say we can't, just that most of us never bothered to learn any. When we did fight, we would simply mold our chakra into elemental form and unleash it with little restrictions. This resulted in lots of power but large amounts of collateral damage. Naruto had managed to follow everything that Kurama had told him. Frowning in determination, he waited for Kurama to continue. Alright, now since you are a beginner, I will act as a valve for my chakra. I will feed my chakra in small but consistent amounts so that it will be easier for you to control. Now I am going to send some chakra through and I want you to focus on the feeling. Follow the way it flows through your body and pay attention to how it appears. Naruto closed his eyes, breathing deeply. After a short while concentrating, he could sense a small amount, light, inside of him. Then the light grew brighter, taking on a red glow. The red light spread throughout his body slowly, in no particular direction. The red light felt warm and Naruto found himself enjoying the way the warmth spread. It was comforting. Now you know how my chakra feels, you need to know how to use it. What do you see or feel now? Asked Kurama. It's like a red light is inside me, filling me up with warmth, replied Naruto in a slightly serene voice. He really liked this feeling. My chakra is red, which explains the color. Now focus on that red light. I want you to try and funnel the light into your right hand. Don't worry, the amount of chakra I was sent through is tiny, so you won't suffer chakra burns. Kurama explained. Naruto did as instructed and slowly his hand began to feel quite warm. He opened his eyes and saw that his right hand was surrounded by the same red chakra from the before. Soon, red chakra had enveloped his right hand once again. Recalling how the chakra had made him stronger than normal, Naruto clasped his hands and slowly squeezed. He noticed at once that his right was pressing down more firmly and that he had to squeeze much harder with his left to get the same kind of force. Curious, Naruto began trying to stretch the chakra up his arm, but it stopped at his elbow and wouldn't go any higher. Okay Naruto, that's all the chakra I've sent through. I want you to get a better handle of that amount before I up the flow. Focus the amount you have back inside your arm and into a ball, then move the ball from your hand up through your arm, then down to your right foot. After that, back up your right leg, then down your left leg and foot, then up to your left hand. This will be a good exercise for control. Kurama explained. Naruto focused once again and slowly but surely the ball moved up his right arm and down his right side to his foot. Pausing for a quick breathe, he moved the ball up to his leg and across to his left foot, finally finishing at his left hand. Concentrating like this was more difficult than he had thought, but he did it. A small part of Naruto wanted to jump up and down and start crying out, "I did it," but he remembered Akari and what she said about annoying sounds. No, quiet was best, so Naruto could only afford to give himself a satisfied smile. Kurama for his part was surprised. For a kid that had no prior experience molding or controlling chakra to be able to complete that step in the first attempt meant he had to be very smart. This brat definitely got some of your brains, Minato, thought Kurama in some amusement. Okay kid. Keep the ball inside your left hand. I will send through some more chakra and I want you to form a new ball inside your right hand. Then once you have, do the same thing you did before but with both chakra balls. There will be extra step here. From your left hand, move the ball across your chest and back to the start. Move them at the same time since that will be harder, but with practice you will get it. Kurama stated. If Naruto had indeed received some of Minato's talent, then Kurama could up the difficulty of the training without worrying about burning the kid out. After 2 failed attempts, Naruto was frowning. Moving one ball was so easy, why was this so much harder? The main problem arose when the left ball crossed his chest heading back to his right hand. For some reason it became much harder to cross his chest than his arms. It was almost like the ball was moving through water when before it had been air. Maybe chakra is located in a person's center, meaning there is more of it there, making it tougher to move through, thought Naruto. Wait, didn't the fox say that I had 2 types of chakra, mine and his? Maybe my chakra is interfering with his when I move it since it is not my chakra. After having that particular thought, Naruto sat down again and closed his eyes. He focused again on his inner light but ignored the red for now. He pushed past it and found a new blue light. It was calm and still and Naruto was surprised at the amount there. It was so much more than what the fox was letting him practice with. Slowly he gathered from of the blue light and opened his eyes. He then gathered a small ball of red chakra and covered it with his blue chakra, then tried moving it across his chest. This proved to be much easier and Naruto grew excited. Pulling up more of both chakras, he soon had both balls moving throughout his body. After 10 minutes of practice, Naruto had the balls flowing around his body with such ease that he didn't even really need to think about it. Kurama was now shocked at the progress. I was preparing to give him a hint after those 2 failed attempts, but he figured it out himself. I wasn't really expecting this kind of progress, but we still have a long way to go before I will be truly comfortable letting him have free control in a fight. Still though, to intuitively know that he would get the best results by mixing our chakra after this amount of time, this kid is a genius, even if he doesn't realize it yet. Good, for a human. Now for something else, make your right hand a focal point of my chakra and focus all of it there. After that, form the chakra into something like a glove, make it surround your skin. This focuses the chakra and makes the effects more potent with only a little more effort. This is the first step in making you stronger. With this chakra glove, your punches will be many times stronger. Now make a glove on both hands. As Naruto began the new steps, Kurama was thinking about Naruto's next fight. It'll be against another kid, but they might have some training after seeing Naruto use my chakra to win his first fight. I don't want to give him too much instruction and distract him with ideas for the future. I need to build his body up and provide him with weapons that he can use now. Make sure he knows the basics first. I will also have to get the training for elemental chakra change in soon. I don't want too many people seeing red chakra. After all, demon containers are almost universally despised. Naruto had now formed gloves around both of his hands and was swinging his arms around wildly, fighting an imaginary opponent. This doesn't feel right. It takes too long for my fists to hit where I want them to. Joshi, no, don't think of his name. That boy yesterday was fast, not slow, so I should use my arms quickly. Swinging them like this gives power, but I don't need power with these chakra gloves, thought Naruto with sudden clarity. Naruto then brought his hands up close to his body. If swinging them is too slow, I guess I should just hit straight, right? And he did just that. Jabbing his right hand out straight, Naruto felt the difference immediately. This was definitely the way to go. Naruto then spent the next 10 minutes alternating between left and right punches. A sudden noise to near his door made Naruto look around. A man he had not seen before was unlocking it. "Time for dinner, maggot," said the man in gravelly tones. "Follow me." Naruto did so and was led back to the large area with tables near the pig gate. Naruto hadn't taken the time before to observe this room in detail, but he did so now. Naruto counted 4 long tables with 7 or 8 stools on either side of them. About 30 kids were sitting down, all eating. The tables and stools were bolted into the stone floor with 2 bulbs hanging from the ceiling providing the only light. All in all, it was a dreary room, poorly lit and with cold stone making up the walls, floor and ceiling. Naruto was led towards a serving bench where a stern-looking woman waited. Soon, a small steel bowl of rice and fish was placed in front of him. He also got a plastic cup of water but no cutlery. "Eat quickly, or it will get taken from you by the larger kids," advised the women. Naruto found a space that didn't have many other kids around and started wolfing down his food as fast as he could. It was the same here, just like the orphanage. The small bowl didn't last very long and Naruto made sure to eat every last grain. Washing it down with his water, Naruto did not feel full in the slightest. "Hey Runt, don't you know it's rude to eat your food without giving me any?" A hostile voice cut through Naruto's thoughts. He looked left and saw a teenage boy glowering at him. "All new guys have to pay me tribute. I'm the strongest fighter here." Naruto frowned. This was clearly not true, and since the serving women had told him others might try to steal his food, he didn't believe those words. "Sorry, I ate all my food," he replied, hoping that this wouldn't end in violence. "Fuck you, if I don't get to eat your food, then you don't either." He then grabbed Naruto and threw him to the ground, following it up with a downward stomp aimed at his stomach. Naruto had his chakra gloves activated and caught the boy's foot, surprising both of them. Naruto then gripped the ankle with his left hand while wrenching the foot away from him with his right hand with all his strength. A sickening crack was heard and the older boy fell onto his rear in pain, clutching at his now broken ankle. Naruto rolled away from his opponent and got to his feet quickly. Racing back towards him, he jabbed forward with his right hand into the boy's chin, knocking him out. All the other fighters were watching with interest. Some were murmuring to each other while sizing up this newest threat. "That's enough." Akari's sharp call cut through all conversation. A sudden silence fell in the eatery. While fighting is permitted, serious injuries are not. You brat, broke the rules. You get the brand. Hands roughly grabbed onto Naruto before he knew what was happening. His dirty shirt was pulled up and he heard Akari say, "Fire release. Rapid torch," which was followed by a burst of heat somewhere behind him. Without warning, the burning brand was pressed against his back and Naruto's world exploded into agony. The smell of burning flesh filled his nostrils as his vocal cords tore from the volume of his screaming. Thankfully, the pain was far too much for him to handle and he passed out quickly. Back inside Naruto's mindscape, Kurama was rigid, trying to prevent himself from writhing around in torment. Even in his tortured state of mind, Kurama had enough presence of mind to try and hide the truth from Naruto. Still, they used a brand? A goddamned fucking brand. Who uses that on a 6-year-old kid? I could sense that Akari had a malicious nature, but I didn't that it would go this far. This pain is nothing compared to the fight earlier. Kurama gnashed his teeth in pain. He suddenly felt his fur being rubbed near his left front paw. Kurama looked down and saw Naruto looking up at him. Although Naruto didn't have to suffer more pain while being inside his mindscape, the sheer scale of what he had suffered had already deeply affected him. Kurama could see it in the boy's eyes. "I'm sorry, Fox, I didn't know about the rules. I broke our promise. I didn't want this to happen." Kurama growled. "We are going to kill them all, you hear me, Naruto? For causing you this pain they will suffer. Are you with me in this?" Naruto nodded. "We will make them pay, believe it." Naruto then curled himself on top of Kurama's left front paw and fell asleep. Kurama lowered his head until it rested on the floor next to Naruto. "This kid is something else. He entered my space without a second thought to try and comfort me. Even though he is still suspicious of me and my motivations, he is far too kind for this life." Knowing that the kid was there with him seemed to ease the pain somehow. Kurama also closed his eyes and drifted off to sleep, dreaming of all the many ways he was going to make Akari suffer. Kurama felt his consciousness awaken and was greeted once again by the pain caused by that accursed brand. After living for centuries, he knew that humanity were far greater monsters than he would ever be, but actually branding a 6-year-old boy, Kurama never really thought something like that would happen before his eyes. If Naruto suffers another brand, I don't think his mind would survive. I can't let that happen. Kurama was shocked with himself for that thought. He suddenly realized it was true, but not just because of the deal he and Naruto had made. Having watched Naruto's life through his eyes, Kurama knew exactly how much the village hated Naruto. The boy, bless his soul, not understanding why but determined to never give up in spite of it, had earned a small portion of Kurama's respect. Knowing that his natural healing had started the second the brand had left Naruto's skin, Kurama figured that the biggest threat to Naruto was his own mindset. I had to teach him nature transformation now. I can't worry about overstimulating his brain or setting lofty goals if he loses a fight. With enough skill he might even be able to shield his back from that brand. Kurama thought heavily. "Naruto," Kurama began, looking down at the small boy still curled up on top of his left paw. "You have to wake up. There are things I need to teach you and we don't know how much time we have before your next fight." Naruto stirred, stretching out his body with a wide yawn. His eyes were still shadowed in pain but nowhere near as bad as before. Naruto was in deep thought. "When I got branded, it was the worst thing I had ever felt. When I got to my mindscape though, the fox also looked like he was in pain. Does that mean we are more connected than he said? I guess it would explain why he wants to make me stronger, but why didn't he tell me? Lack of trust, I suppose. I still don't fully trust him, but if we are going to be working together we should at least be friendlier." Finding out that he quite liked the idea of having a friend, Naruto looked at the fox and asked, "Hey Nine Tails, I know you're gonna tell me to shut up, but just hear me out, okay? I think I can sort of understand you now. You had your freedom taken away and got locked up just like me. We are both thought of as monsters, but that's not the case. If we are going to work together we should treat each other a little bit nicer. I guess what I'm really trying to say is, do you want to be my friend?" There was silence throughout the mindscape. Naruto was still looking the fox in the eye, hoping he had said the right thing. Kurama blinked and then gave a snort. Kurama was amused. A human wanted to be his friend? Still, he had not detected any kind of lie or misdirection when Naruto made his offer. I highly doubt he meant best buddies. He is probably still suspicious of me, just as I am of him, but he has a point. We are stuck together and I can't really keep calling him brat. I guess I'll give him my name but not the rest, he will have to earn the truth first. Making up his mind, Kurama gave his response. Sure kid, my name's Kurama. Now that all the touchy-feely stuff is out of the way, let's start this training, huh? Most kids wouldn't be able to do this, but I have faith in you. Great. In spite of the fact that he had just been branded, Naruto was smiling. You're the first friend I've ever had. I know that I'm weak, but I will become strong enough to protect my friends, and that's a promise, believe it. Kurama could feel the emotion of the moment but chose to ignore it. Almost as if in afterthought, Naruto said, with a slight smirk. Oh, and can you let my brand scar? I want to keep it as proof of my promise. Kurama nodded before telling Naruto what he had wanted to say when he woke him up. Now we need to move on to the next step of your training. The next stage you have to learn is how to mold my chakra into one of the 5 different nature transformations. This is quite hard, but the results will be worth it. Basically, if someone with an affinity for the fire transformation used a fire jutsu, it would be stronger and cost less chakra than someone without the fire affinity. I don't know your own nature affinity or how to discover it, but that's not important yet. All you need to know is that I possess a fire affinity and that I have already mastered it. I just have to train you so that you can use my chakra and nature at the same time. This might sound like a big shortcut, but it will still be hard work. You and I both know that you have to master it, and soon. Otherwise, Kurama trailed off, knowing that Naruto knew to what he was referring to. Naruto gulped. He knew that Kurama was asking a lot, but he also knew he was right. He had to do this, he just had to. Naruto spent the next 4 days practicing Kurama's nature transformation. It was hard work, and in that entire time Naruto could only make fire chakra appear on the palm of his right hand. It resembled a small unstable ball of fire flickering as if a strong breeze would snuff it out. Kurama also told him to try and walk up the side of his cell with chakra. At the start he couldn't even stick to it, but with continual practice he eventually managed to stand on the wall with his right hand aflame. Naruto also inspected every part of his cell that he could reach. The walls were solid and the steel bars too strong for him to budge, even with Kurama's chakra gloves. There was no way to escape his cell, and he had no chance of beating his captors when they fetched him for his fights. Naruto would just have to keep doing what he was told for the moment until he had a good chance for freedom. If I had managed to trick him into freeing me, the cell would have no hope in keeping me here, but now I am sworn to help Naruto, and freeing me now would kill him. Kurama knew that he had skipped a large chunk of Naruto's actual ninja training. It would have been far easier if he could teach him ninjutsu, but he didn't know how. Using hand signs to cast a flame would be infinitely easier than dropping him into the deep end and starting with nature transformation, but Kurama couldn't do that. He had no idea what the actual hand signs looked like. On the plus side, if he did manage to escape and get back to Konoha, Naruto would be the strongest 6-year-old in the entire village. He would pick up their teachings in ninjutsu faster since his chakra control would be at a higher level than others his age. The injury suffered from the brand was healing slowly. It still hurt a lot, but in 4 days Kurama had managed to heal it as if 2 weeks had passed. The mark itself was nothing special, just a plain circle 4 centimeters in diameter located roughly 2 centimeters above his left kidney. In order for the mark to scar, Kurama was forced to slow his healing factor down to a crawl. The sound of his door being unlocked caught Naruto's attention. He looked towards it and spied Akari looking back at him with a sadistic grin. Hope you're feeling better, brat, it's fighting day for you. Naruto swallowed. He didn't know if he had trained enough for another fight. He also knew that Akari would not give him a choice in the matter, so he sighed and walked over to his door, following Akari all the way to then into the pit. Naruto could see his opponent across on the other side. It looked like a 12-year-old boy with an ugly scar running down the left side of his face, but apart from that he was utterly unremarkable. Naruto, do you want me to take control here? I do not believe you have trained enough yet, questioned Kurama. Let me have at least a minute or two. If I'm going to get stronger I will need to fight my own battles and not rely on you to save me, Naruto replied, a touch somberly. Okay, but remember what we discussed. Surprise and speed without exposing yourself. Naruto eyed his opponent with a grim expression. Fight. The announcement for action came through. Naruto breathed out, spreading out his legs evenly and raising his hands up. Naruto was watching his opponent charge towards him. Waiting until his opponent was almost upon him, Naruto concentrated on his right hand and fire burst into life in his palm. He thrust his right palm forward into the chest of his opponent with as much speed and strength as he could manage without losing his balance. The older boy screamed in pain and backed away several paces, clutching at his chest in agony. Naruto could see the indent of his strike seared into skin. Not letting this opportunity go to waste, Naruto stepped forward and grabbed the other boy's face with his burning right hand. Cries echoed throughout the underground arena as Naruto scorched his opponent's eyes. Stepping back as the blinded boy started flailing about randomly, Naruto flanked the poor boy and started choking him to death with his left arm wrapped around his throat. A tormented choking could be heard as the boy desperately struggled to breath. Subconsciously, Naruto's arm relieved some of the pressure. Despite his earlier resolve, killing another boy had affected him too deeply. However, Naruto only received a painful elbow to his ribs for his moment of mercy. Steeling himself, Naruto choked the boy even harder than before. Even with the nails digging into his forearm, Naruto didn't let up on the pressure and the boy's life slipped away. Naruto let the limp body fall away as he stepped back. The all-too-familiar feeling of disgust rose inside him, but Naruto quickly shoved it away, into the dark corner of his mind. He couldn't afford to fall apart now, not when he actually had a friend to lose. As Naruto continued to suppress his emotions, a distinct numbness started in his hands and feet. Naruto didn't really pay it much heed. Perhaps this is what strong people feel. Lack of feeling makes it easier to fight. This new sensation wasn't physical. It was all mental as a result of Naruto giving himself physiological damage as he suppressed his feelings of disgust, sadness and anger. Kurama himself was disturbed. Perhaps all the suffering Naruto has endured broke him? Or these circumstances are forcing him to become a colder person? A boy of 6 shouldn't be having these kinds of thoughts. I did promise to make him stronger, but at what cost? Will the boy who wouldn't let sadness stop his smile have to die so that we don't have to undergo any more pain? Kurama knew that these kinds of questions would never be answered, but he still could not help but feel regret at the death of Naruto's innocence. I have to ensure that he doesn't become some kind of crazed cold-blooded killer, who wipes out life without a second thought. Hiruzen Sarutobi stood next to his office window, looking out over his village. As his eyes surveyed the place that he had fought for his entire life, he couldn't help but feel a little melancholy. In 10 minutes it will be the 5th of August, Hiruzen hated that date. It was the commemoration date that poor little Naruto had been abducted from Konoha. This approaching 5th would be the third one. Holding the position of Hokage, Sarutobi knew that it was his responsibility to care for and guide the people of the Hidden Leaf, but the weight of that responsibility was getting heavier every year. Realizing that moping over the date was not going to accomplish anything, Hiruzen stepped over to his desk and switched on his lamp. His desk flooded with light while the rest of the room was barely visible with flickering candles. Not bothering to turn the rest of his lights on, he attempted to continue his paperwork while he sat alone in the darkened office. Unbidden, Hiruzen's thoughts returned to his dead successor and his failures. Not only had he failed Minato by not fulfilling his final wishes, but he had also failed Minato's son, Naruto, in so many ways. Naruto had been an innocent boy, full of life and not understanding the burden he carried within him nor why the villagers hated him so. While Hiruzen knew that Naruto was not the most popular figure in the village, he had never truly known the extent of his people's animosity. Their true feelings were made very clear to him when not even 2 days had passed after the kidnapping, when the people, mainly ignorant civilians, started talking amongst themselves. Not about how tragic the forcible removal of an innocent boy was, but about how relieved they were that the demon brat was finally gone and that their village was once again safe. When the second anniversary of Naruto's disappearance and presumed death happened, a majority of the civilians and a small number of leaf shinobi held a small celebration, reveling in the fact that the monster that had caused so much suffering had perished. When Hiruzen was informed of this by his dog Anbu, he felt disgust flow through his body. The next day he announced to the village his disappointment in them. He then chose to reveal the true parentage of Naruto, having kept it a secret due to the massive bounty that the village hidden in the stone had placed on Minato or any of his family. Thinking that Naruto was dead meant that there was no longer any reason for his silence on the matter. It also gave him a small sense of relish when they suddenly realized the extent of their actions as well as the repercussions of them. After the truth was released, a profound change swept over the village. Although still forbidden to talk about Naruto's special tenant, everyone suddenly felt very small. All of Hiruzen's reasons as to why Naruto was not a demon but a hero who jailed the demon every day at great effort was revealed to the adult population. A profound shame descended on the village, with many of the most zealous anti-Naruto villagers in turn becoming pariahs. Sighing softly to himself, Hiruzen was broken from his dwelling of past events by a knock on his door. "Enter," he replied, and Jiraiya stepped through into the Hokage's office. Jiraiya did not look quite as cheerful these days anymore. The sudden vanishing of his godson had possibly weighed more on him than even on Hiruzen himself. "Sensei," Jiraiya began before shutting the door behind him while also clicking on the ceiling light. "I have some vague news that you need to hear. One of my sources informed me of a group called Akatsuki. They're a group of S-rank missing ninja that have come together and are performing large-scale criminal acts. There's also a whisper of a rumor that Akatsuki are also after the demon containers. Although I don't know if that's true, I do know that Akatsuki are very real and very dangerous. However, if what is being rumored is true, then it's possible that these guys are responsible for Naruto's disappearance." Hiruzen, while listening to Jiraiya, had stuffed his pipe before lighting it. After hearing all of this, he leaned back, looking above Jiraiya's head in thought as he exhaled a lungful of smoke. A group of S-rank missing ninja, this was a group that was highly dangerous. If the rumors were indeed true, Hiruzen needed answers from them. If he had proof that Naruto was dead, Hiruzen would have been sad but been able to put it behind him. Not knowing meant that he couldn't bear the thought of possibly giving up hope that Naruto still lived. "Even though I hoped that he lived didn't stop me from revealing the truth of his parents. It was a risk, but I could no longer bear the disgrace my people showed Naruto. Jiraiya, if what you say is true, then we need to find out what they know. Even if they are not responsible, they are still a massive threat and we need to know as much about them as possible. Is there anything else you can tell me about them?" "Well, they seem to be in a phase of recruitment, with at least 2 S-class missing ninjas falling under the radar. A Kakuzu from Hidden Waterfall and Riku from Hidden Grass. Not one of my sources can tell me where those 2 went, but connecting 2, admittedly vague, dots makes me think they are now Akatsuki as well. The biggest problem is that I have no idea where they are located or how many members they have, although I do have several tracking toads out searching for both them and Naruto." There was a silence in the office as both men once again found their thoughts turning to the missing child. Hiruzen looked briefly at his clock. It read 12:02 a.m. It was officially the day of Naruto's kidnapping. Reaching into one of his desk drawers, the third Hokage pulled out a bottle of sake and 2 cups, and after filling both he gestured for Jiraiya to take one. To Naruto and to Hope, both men said, draining their cups in one go. This had become a small tradition for the pair of them, although both wished every day that they would receive news and be able to stop it. The sudden appearance of his weasel Enbu kneeling in Hiruzen's office caught him by surprise. "Itachi, why are you here? I would have thought that you would be working on the plan with Shisui," questioned Hiruzen. "The plan has failed, Lord Hokage. Shisui has died and one of his Mangekyo Sharingan was stolen by Danzo. I have come to report that Danzo has given me a new mission. To kill my entire clan but sparing my younger brother, or to stand aside as the Uchiha wage their coup d'état and watch my clan, as well as many other loyal Leaf Shinobi, die. I already know that I would take the path that leads to the least amount of bloodshed, but I wanted to inform you before acting." This news greatly disturbed Hiruzen. It was classic Danzo, taking the most ruthless action for the betterment of the village. Although he could admire parts of Danzo's loyalty, Hiruzen also knew that Danzo had many schemes that, while benefiting the Leaf, would also benefit him at the same time. Danzo was a slippery rat and Hiruzen knew to keep an eye on him but didn't want to believe his old teammate would stoop to these kinds of depths. Hiruzen looked at Jiraiya and asked him to seal the room for some privacy. When that was done, he returned his attention to Itachi Uchiha. "Itachi, I know that you are a noble soul and in another time you would have made a great Hokage. However, fate is not on either of our sides. As the third Hokage, I am officially changing Danzo's mission. Only kill the members of your clan that actually want to overthrow me. Spare the innocents. I will not abide their blood to be shed. Once this is done, I have a new mission once you complete." Hiruzen paused as he took another drag from his pipe before continuing. "After completing Danzo's mission, I will have no choice but to brand you a missing ninja and traitor. You shall have to flee and never return. Your new mission is to locate Naruto Uzumaki and find out what happened to him. Once this is done, you are to infiltrate a group calling itself Akatsuki. You will in turn become Jiraiya's newest spy, and I shall let him inform you about how and when to contact him while undercover. This mission will be an S-rank secret. Akatsuki appears to be very dangerous and we need eyes inside this organization. I trust that you shall play your part very well and not arouse suspicion. The gravity of the situation seemed to catch up with Hiruzen at that moment. Rubbing his hand over his face, he sighed again but continued speaking. Itachi, you know that I never wanted this to happen. I respect your father and hope that we could resolve this peacefully. I guess I underestimated Fugaku's resolve and regret that it came to this. As I said before, only kill the guilty, spare the children and civilians, this includes Sasuke. I give you my word that I shall do everything in my power to ensure that nothing shall happen to your brother while you are gone. It is my fervent hope that one day you may help in the destruction of this Akatsuki and return to Konoha as the loyal shinobi I know that you are. Hiruzen gazed at Itachi, but the Anbu mask prevented him from seeing any emotions that might have shown upon his face. I understand, Lord Hokage, thank you for your kind words. I will not fail you or the village. After saying this, Itachi stood to leave for Danzo's mission. Jiraiya, who had listened with great interest but stayed silent, handed Itachi a scroll detailing the ways that Itachi could get information back to him. Placing the scroll into a pouch on his belt, Itachi used a body flicker and left the office. Pouring another drink for himself, Hiruzen looked at Jiraiya. I don't suppose I could persuade you to take this office? We both know you have the skill and I would love to spend some more time with my grandson. He just had his 5th birthday, you know. Jiraiya now looked uncomfortable in his seat. He poured himself another drink while replying. I'm sorry sensei, but no. Even after you set the villagers straight by telling them about Naruto's parents, I don't think I will ever truly forgive this village for the way they treated him. My will of fire does still burn, but only for the future generations. I have practically given up on the rest of them. I still think I failed as a godfather. I should have been here for him. Instead, I let grief consume me over Minato and Kushina's death and buried myself in my work. If I can't live up to the responsibility of being a godfather, how can I handle the duty of being Hokage? Hiruzen sighed again. I seem to be sighing far more these days. It's okay, Jiraiya, I understand completely. I know that you would never be shackled by the chains of my position, and if it weren't for the fact that there weren't any other suitable candidates for Hokage, I would have resigned in protest years ago. The closest is Kakashi, but he also has issues, not only with failing to let his ghosts rest but failing Minato's son as well. At the moment, you truly are the only real option as the 5th Hokage unless Tsunade finds forgiveness for herself. A small smirk appeared on Hiruzen's face as he said, I'm not even going to suggest Danzo as a candidate, although he does have his uses. You know, he discovered an error recorded with the barrier team's reports, spanning back the last 6 years or so? If it weren't for the fact that each team on duty had to deliver a report that was separate from the other teams, the error might never have been found. The error stated that it was fully functional for the duration of their shift, but another report indicates that a small window was opened in the barrier for a short duration. The only problem is that all teams that had ever operated the barrier when these errors occurred had no obvious similarities. Jiraiya was puzzled. Do you mean to say that Danzo is trying to find out more information about Naruto as well? That didn't fit with what Jiraiya knew about the man. Oh no, replied Hiruzen, he just wanted to know how someone managed to breach our defenses and disappear with, as he puts it, a village asset without detection. I am underselling just how well hidden this error was, and it took him 3 long years of digging before he found something concrete. Wow, I can admire his dedication, if nothing else. I would appreciate being kept in the loop, sensei. If there is a traitor that sold out Naruto, I want the first shot at him. Jiraiya said in response. When Hiruzen heard Jiraiya asking to be kept in the loop, he felt a squirming sensation in his stomach. Realizing that this was guilt from concealing certain information, Hiruzen found himself sighing once again. Double-checking that his office was fully sealed off so that nothing could be heard from the outside, he steeled his nerve before speaking. Jiraiya, what I am about to say cannot leave this room. If the seals are not in place, I don't want you even alluding to this subject. Do you understand? The serious tone of his Hokage caught Jiraiya by surprise. Straightening in his chair, he nodded his head in understanding. The daimyo of our country has only ever hinted, but I believe that another clandestine organization operates in the elemental nations. This is only a theory, but I think that the other daimyos have formed some kind of group that caters specifically to them and their tastes. Due to their sheer political power and the number of samurai in their employ, this group would wield enormous power. If this is true, then no power we could field would be able to fight it. This idea stems from the fact that our daimyo never confirmed my theory but forbade me from speaking of it to others. If Akatsuki didn't take Naruto, then it is most likely that this, hypothetical, organization is responsible. Jiraiya was mentally reeling from Hiruzen's revelations. An organization operating at the highest levels of government would certainly be powerful, but that didn't explain why Hiruzen had taken this long to share something that could just be a theory. When Jiraiya voiced this thought, Hiruzen gave a somber reply. I didn't tell you because 1. There is no proof. 2. If it is real, then there is a real chance that another war occurs. If all the other daimyo are a part of this conspiracy, then it might mean the other 4 nations annihilating our village to try and silence the truth. That is a risk I am not willing to take, not even for Naruto. Even if my feelings to my subjects changed to less than it was in the past, I still swore that I would protect them. Jiraiya, you cannot breathe a word of this to anyone, but keep your eyes open. Gulping, Jiraiya nodded again, still trying to wrap his head around the enormity of what he had been told and the possible consequences for knowing about it. While drinking through the rest of the bottle, the 2 men shared a companionable silence. Jiraiya soon said his farewells and prepared to return to the field. Hiruzen turned in his chair and gazed out his window again. He knew he should get some sleep. It would be a long day tomorrow, dealing with the aftermath of Itachi's actions, but he couldn't do it. He had burned the midnight oil far more after Naruto's abduction, feeling as though he had not done enough as Hokage. He could increase security all he wanted. It would not stop the nightmares of a 6-year-old's rotting corpse pointing at him accusingly for his incompetence. A crackling sound of electricity behind him was the only warning Naruto got before feeling a sharp pain on his back. Stumbling forward, Naruto turned around, trying to get his opponent in sight before another attack could be launched. Lightning release. Static shock. The cry came before Naruto could fully regain his senses. He threw himself to his left, feeling heat pass him by on his right. Rolling back up to his feet, Naruto thrust his right hand out in front of him in the general direction of his attacker. Flames burst out from his palm, fanning out in a narrow arc. Naruto focused and the arc became wider. If I don't know his exact location, I have to hit a large area at once to give myself some time to think. Naruto sustained his attack for another couple of seconds before canceling it and moving to another spot in the pit. Gotta keep moving. Kurama said that staying in one position too long just makes you an easier target. Running back towards his right, Naruto saw a small shield made of lightning disperse, his opponent looking around frantically for Naruto. Seizing the opportunity, Naruto raised his right hand again and concentrated. A small compact ball of flame shot out at high speed, as fast as Naruto could manage. Before his attacker knew what had happened, the fireball had connected with his chest. The size of the attack meant that it had no real chance of ending the fight, but it was quite distracting. The poor kid was desperately trying to fight through to pain, knowing that Naruto would soon be upon him. Once again drawing upon Kurama's fiery chakra, Naruto launched a small torrent of continuous flame. It cooked the boy quite quickly, but not fast enough to kill him instantly. His dying cries of agony reverberated around the pit. Naruto focused on increasing the intensity of his fire, trying to end the fight as quickly as possible. However, with his anxious efforts to end it quickly, he flew past the temperature he had aimed for and vaporized all the water inside the boy. A disgusting, dehydrated corpse fell to the ground and applause sounded. With the fight over, Naruto found his pumping blood cooling, quickly overtaken by his usual numbness. Although Naruto had no idea how long he had been at the pit, he knew that it had to have been at least 2 years. Kurama believed it was closer to 3, but it really wasn't that important. What was important was that he was far stronger than the weak, scared boy who let himself be caught in an arm hold. Naruto had not counted how many people he had killed, but he knew it was high. Every month or so, new kids would show their faces in the mess hall. Most of them didn't last long. Ever since that strange numbness had begun, Naruto had found it easier to fight. He no longer felt horrible about himself, although he didn't really feel much of anything these days. He couldn't afford the luxury of being disgusted by his actions. He needed to train so that he could uphold his promise. Naruto had learned quickly from his first week here. The most important lesson was that quiet was good, silence was better. After receiving a rather painful but not major injury at a mealtime had resulted in his involuntary howl of pain, Naruto was subjected to another brand, right next to the first one. Naruto had taken to simply whispering all of his conversations and biting his lip when in pain to prevent another mark being given. Even within his mindscape, Kurama had not heard Naruto's true voice since. Naruto also never tried to gain attention or acknowledgement. That could only lead to more suffering. After being locked in his cell once again, Naruto sat down, resuming his training from where it had been left off. Focusing on Kurama's chakra, he converted it into fire and then tried to wrap his body with it. His previous efforts had resulted in burns all over his body, but this time Naruto tried to shape the fiery chakra to reflect the heat outwards. He could see that this time he had more success. Instead of jumping the gun and turning up the heat, Naruto stood and made sure that his whole body was completely covered and then focused on sustaining the mode for as long as he could while moving his body through some basic exercises. After 4 hours of constant practice, Naruto could hold his newly dubbed fire mode for an hour without breaks. This mode was a massive step up from his current way of fighting. With his body covered in a shroud of fire, he could defend himself at all times and angles from physical attacks while also increasing the damage that his ordinary strikes could deal. However, even with his newest accomplishment, Naruto didn't show any emotion on his face and his numbness didn't lift at all. Naruto could feel his body changing to the chakra mode as well. It was almost as if his muscles had taken an almost fiery nature as well. It didn't increase his strength per se but made his movements faster, as if his muscles exploded with fire. Now came the hard part. Naruto, while channeling fire mode, tried manipulating his own chakra to flow through his body to increase his natural strength. This was far harder than Naruto had thought, with his fire mode often going out before he could fully increase his body. I can't let this stop me. If I can master these steps, I will be far stronger than anyone I have faced so far. While his determination was admirable, it didn't make the process any easier. It was like trying to control a fire with one hand and balance on a ball at the same time. Focusing on one too much resulted in failure of both. It wasn't until 2 days had passed that Naruto had his breakthrough. Instead of thinking of the process of 2 separate steps, he started the entire thing as one step. Mixing both his and Kurama's chakra together, he simply flooded his whole body with fire chakra and expelled the excess out of his body. This new mode was far superior to his original attempt, with the flames burning hotter with less effort and his bodily muscles having that quick response time with chakra-enhanced strength. This new mode, however, ate up chakra at a rather fast pace, and Naruto could only hold it for as long as his own natural reserves lasted. Once Naruto felt that he had the basics of his new fire mode down, he started thinking of ways to use it in battle. Since no one else knows about this mode yet, I can use that to make an opening. Everyone thinks that I can only shoot fire from my right hand, so I guess they will try and flank my left side. Even though they are all wrong, I can use fire with both hands. I just want to keep that up my sleeve in case I need that edge. If I wait until they start their attack and then activate fire mode, I can inflict damage on them without doing anything else. That won't work for future fights though. This cell is too small for me to see how much faster my body is, but I bet it will take everyone by surprise. I can still use my right hand for fire attacks too. I guess I should only use fire mode when my adversary is close enough for me to punch to conserve my chakra reserves. Nothing else of interest happened until Naruto's next fight. He had only trained, slept and eaten in that time. As he entered the pit again, Naruto could see that his opponent had some kind of ninja training. Kurama could sense the girl's chakra coils flaring outward in preparation for this fight. The usual announcement came and Naruto felt his normal numbness recede somewhat with anticipation for the fight to come. Naruto's thoughts about how this fight would go proved to be accurate, was the girl quickly dashed to Naruto's left, trying to get away from his right hand. Naruto turned and fired a small burst of flame at her. She dodged it easily enough, then made several hand signs and shouted, "Earth release! Boulder shot!" A large boulder rose out of the ground and was flung towards him at high speed. Taken aback by this attack, Naruto quickly rolled to his right. He could hear the girl shout out another jutsu but couldn't make out the words. With the boulder passing by him safely, Naruto jumped to his feet, scanning the entire arena but not seeing his adversary. "Naruto, below you, dodge!" Kurama shouted at him with urgency. Naruto jumped back just in time to dodge the girl's fist as it passed by his face as the girl left the ground she had been submerged in. "This is my chance." Naruto activated his fire mode and grabbed the girl's arm, burning her flesh as he used his new strength to pull her out of the ground entirely. Grabbing her in a bear hug, Naruto squeezed with all his might while increasing the heat of his flames as high as he could. Sickening cracks could be heard as Naruto felt her ribs breaking under the force he placed them under. Not stopping there, Naruto kept squeezing until she went completely limp in his arms. He let her go and jumped back. He saw a charred and blackened body. Not taking any chances like he had in the past, Naruto unleashed more flames and reduced the corpse into ash. He wouldn't take another hit in the back after thinking he had won, not again. The cold numbness seeped back into Naruto as he once again got locked in his cell. Naruto quickly felt himself returning to his routine of training, trying to think of ways to make himself stronger while inside him Kurama was deep in thought. This Naruto is not one that I care to see. He is not the same boy I used to know, being replaced by this whispering killing machine. I doubt anything I say now will change anything, just like my last attempts to connect with him. It's almost as if he fears that by letting me in, he will lose what makes him strong. He needs someone in his life, but it looks like it can't be me because his life revolves around protecting me. He really has taken that promise to help each other seriously. Or perhaps he fights so hard to protect his only friend? All I know is, his mental state is deteriorating and I can't do a single thing to help him. Akari was having a heated discussion with her supervisor and former captain, Toshiro Takahashi. "Cap, I hear what you're saying, but we are still making money here. After the expense of capturing the little brats, it doesn't make sense to just close us down. Akari, there will always be that small niche market that loves watching little kids kill each other, but the fact is that the majority of our clientele prefers more savage and technical fights that adults bring. Each month your business brings in less and less revenue. Yes, you are still positive, but it won't be that way for long. I like the way you run things here, Akari. I'm doing you a favor here, in honor of our shared service in the Kinkaku Force. I'm giving you a chance to end things with a bang and make others take notice of you and your skills." Toshiro paused for breath. He walked over and leaned upon the right side of her office's wall before continuing. "I'll also give you a position working with the adult side of things so that you won't be out of a job. Just make things interesting fast while whittling down your numbers. Mako has already been told to stop bringing in more kids, although we both know he won't stop catching them, just bringing them here. Make as much money as you can, then you can move on to greener pastures." Akari sat in her chair. It was a lot of information to take in. She knew that Toshiro didn't have to do this and she was grateful. He's probably only sticking up for me since I saved his life while we served together. Still though, this was her work, it was more than that. This was a job that she truly enjoyed, although nothing could last forever. How can I achieve what he asks? Akari pondered before she had a sudden brainwave and her sadistic grin marred her features. "Okay Cap, I got it. Get the word out that next week is going to be the biggest event we have held. Explain that it's gonna be a battle royale with all the kids I've got left. I'll even throw in an incentive to make them all fight harder. This is gonna be a blast." A week had passed by but nothing had changed for Naruto. He had managed to make his fire hotter than ever before and started trying to mold his own chakra into his natural affinity. The only problem was that Kurama didn't know what it was, so he had Naruto perform various drills to try and find his own affinity. So far nothing had really worked, but Naruto could almost feel his own chakra taking on a new shape, like it was somehow becoming sharper. The familiar sound of his door unlocking rang out and Naruto stood up. It was fighting time. Naruto knew something was different when he entered the pit. The arena had a lot more fighters in it than normal. Looking up, the stands held far more people than Naruto had seen previously. A large screen was lowered from the roof and Akari's face appeared on it. "Alright, listen up you little maggots. Today is the last day of the pit. There are about 32 kids here and you are all gonna fight today until there is only one left standing. The winner gets to leave. That got everyone's attention. "Naruto, I know you have what it takes, but don't lose yourself," Kurama said. A hint of concern could be heard in his voice. He didn't receive any kind of response from Naruto, which worried Kurama. How long will it take until Naruto is so cold that there is no return? Looking around, Naruto saw a few of the kids talking. It seemed like they wanted to form a short truce to help them live a little longer. Before much more discussion was held, however, Akari's voice cut in. "Make it bloody, you brats, fight." Naruto tensed, looking around and while trying to come up with a game plan on short notice. He had never experienced a fight with more than 3 other people, and now he had to survive one with 32. "I would stay on the edge of the arena, Naruto. Only fight those who approach you and try not to use big flashy attacks. That would probably just attract attention and might force the others to team up to take out a bigger threat," Kurama suggested. He didn't want any unnecessary risks to be taken. Naruto agreed as he started moving to his left, keeping his right hand free to attack towards the center of the arena. A boy charged at him suddenly with a crazed look in his eyes. Ducking under the wild swing, Naruto brought his right hand up, as if he was going to deliver a chop, in front of his newest opponent. Naruto formed a thin triangular blade of flame that enveloped his entire hand, which cut through the boy's chest like paper. The heat of his blade was so intense it cauterized the wound instantly, although the kid was dead at the moment of Naruto's attack. Not sparing the falling corpse a glance, he moved on. Looking around, the death toll had risen at an alarming rate. Blood had spilled everywhere, with bodies littering the ground. Naruto dealt with a girl who tried to take him down with another fiery blade, this time cutting her from right shoulder to left hip while dodging her rock-covered fists. As the 2 pieces fell to the ground, Naruto heard a boy's voice cut through the air. "Earth release. Grand quake," and a massive wave of earth flew out in all directions from near the center of the pit. It caught a large number of the weaker fighters in the attack and thinned out the pack quite nicely. Naruto activated his new fire mode and crossed his arms in front of him in preparation of the attack. He managed to burn hot enough to melt the stone at the cost of a fair chunk of his chakra. In return for his actions, the exhausted boy got zapped by a large amount of electricity while trying to recover from his loss of chakra. "You were right, Kurama, don't draw attention to ourselves." Naruto spied his next adversary. It was an older boy who looked to be albino. However, the detail that had caught Naruto's attention was the fact that he had somehow acquired a sword. The boy hacked away with abandon, a look of pure joy adorning his face. He raised his swordless left hand and shot something out of it, killing another victim. What was that? What did he shoot? It looked rather small and wait, did he shoot his fingerbone? Naruto, that brat seems to have an unusual bloodline, one that looks like he can manipulate his bones in weird ways. I'd wager that sword of his is made of bone. Suddenly, this strange boy looked directly at Naruto. A feral grin formed as he charged towards Naruto, raising his sword in preparation to strike. Realizing that he needed to move, Naruto took several steps to his right while flaring his blade again. Fire met bone as the 2 boys collided, Naruto noticing that despite the heat his blade couldn't slice through the bone sword. The blade lock ended as the new boy attacked Naruto with a ferocity that he had not experienced before. Naruto knew instantly that he was outclassed. He had never gotten any kind of training with hand-to-hand combat, let alone with swords, and this guy was moving as though he had used one his entire life. Before he knew it, Naruto had received several cuts on his arms and legs, although they were quickly healed thanks to Kurama. "I need to get away from him. There is no way that I can beat this guy fighting like this." "Naruto, behind you, dodge." Naruto, trusting his friend implicitly, ducked and rolled to his left. A small fireball flew past him, right where he had been standing before the warning. Risking a quick glance away from the bone guy, Naruto saw a new opponent eyeing him warily. "Don't forget, kid, there are other fighters here. You could easily take a shot in the back. You will have to fight dirty." Naruto wanted to ask how Kurama had known the attack was coming but held his tongue. That was not really important right now. He saw the new fighter go through several hand signs before saying, "Fire release. Fire blast," as another fireball was launched at him, this time slightly larger than the previous one. In retaliation, Naruto raised his right hand and fired a larger burst of fire. He saw his attack meet the boys and was then amazed when his fire seemed to eat the other attack and grow larger. The other boy had not expected this and before he could dodge was hit with the combined attack. Hoping that was enough to finish the kid off, Naruto returned his attention to the bone guy, however he was not quick enough. The point of the bone sword stabbed into his right shoulder, with the tip piercing deep. Naruto didn't know how or why, all he knew was that his right arm was now hanging limply and in great pain. Despite the shock of the pain, Naruto bit back his impulse to cry out, simply gritting his teeth and allowing a soft growl out. Raising his left hand, Naruto tried to palm thrust at the bone guy's face. In response, the right cheek of his adversary had been parted as the cheekbone formed into a point, stabbing into Naruto's left hand and lodging it there. The bone guy let go of his sword and with both hands, gripped both of Naruto's shoulders while sweeping out Naruto's legs out from under him. Landing on his back, Naruto looked up as bone guy knelt on his right, opening his mouth to speak. You're strong. I need to kill you to get stronger." The boy's voice started with a crazed tone but had started getting crazier as he continued. "I need to do this, I need it. I'm going to stab you over and over and then I'm going to eat your heart." Eat my heart? This guy is crazy. Naruto knew that Kurama could heal his damaged shoulder but that it might take too long. He was pulled from his thoughts as he was stabbed again, this time in his stomach, then again in his right hip. Desperation lanced through Naruto and he drew upon his own chakra, knowing that Kurama was focusing on healing his wounds. In sheer desperation, he pushed the chakra out of left palm. A sudden gust of air surprised both boys before a blade of wind sliced through Bone Guy's head. The attack was so sudden he didn't have time to harden his bones with his chakra and the wind ended up cutting through with ease. Blood and brain matter rained down onto Naruto's face and he gagged, turning to his side and standing, trying to get away from the mess. With a soft grunt, he removed the bone sword from his shoulder. Wiping his face, Naruto surveyed the pit. It looked like most of the fighters had been killed already with only a handle left. Deciding to catch his breath and let Kurama heal his wounds properly, Naruto did his best to clean himself up. "Okay Naruto, that's all the damage healed. It looks like your own nature affinity is wind, which works out quite nicely for us. Combining wind and fire techniques makes an even stronger blaze that burns hotter than normal fire jutsus. It would take a much more powerful water jutsu to counter a, for lack of a better word, scorch attack. I know you have no practice using wind, but you are going to have to learn fast. Only the strongest fighters are left by now and using just fire might not be enough. You have no other choice, you can do this," Kurama said. Naruto knew Kurama was right. He simply looked at his left hand and focused on drawing chakra out. Unfortunately, it was ordinary and in no way resembled wind. He thought back to how he first used wind. He had wanted to stop the boy from stabbing him and simply used his chakra as a weapon. Trusting Kurama and his unknown power to sense attacks, Naruto closed his eyes and tried to remember exactly how his arm had felt. It had been light, as if it had lost most of its weight, and in some way his chakra had felt sharp. After that thought, Naruto brought his chakra back to his left hand, willing it to be sharp, almost seeing it being ground. Just like how he had used to sharpen sticks back in the village, grinding them against the wall to make it sharp. Opening his eyes, Naruto could see a swirling mass of air whirling around his left hand. Concentrating, he raised it slightly, firing a small burst of air at the ground in front of him and a small slice mark appeared. He knew he needed more practice, but there was still a bloody free-for-all happening all around him. He had just been lucky to receive this brief respite. Looking left, Naruto saw another boy near the wall of the pit. It appeared as if he was also trying to regain his breath. Deciding to take advantage of an out-of-breath opponent, Naruto charged him, bringing up his left hand as he did so. He fired two small blades of wind towards the boy, who only just managed to dodge them. However, he didn't have the speed to dodge the burst of flame from Naruto's right hand. The boy gave a strangled cry as he was burned, but it got cut off abruptly as another wind blade slit his throat. Turning back towards the center of the pit, Naruto was suddenly hit by a red whip across his face. Fighting through the pain, Naruto looked around and saw his assailant. It was a teenage girl who was standing in the biggest pool of blood in the entire pit. She went through a series of hand signs and said, "Water release, water whip," and another whip rose out of the blood, flying towards Naruto. He dodged to his left while trying to think of a way to attack her. Naruto released one of his best fire bursts towards her, but it simply hit a wall of blood and turned into steam. A truly disgusting smell filled the air as some blood burned, putting out his fire. So she is using the blood like water. Fire won't work here then. Good lord, that smell is bad, but how do I get her? Water release. Water burst. Naruto was forced to roll away to his right as a large wave of blood flew by, impacting against the wall behind him in a gruesome starburst. He raised his left hand and fired the sharpest wind blade he could manage. The girl tried to dodge it, but the blade was too wide and it nicked her left arm, but it was far from a telling wound. As she grimaced in pain, she went through another set of hand signs. Water release. Raging torrent. A large amount of the blood rose up, spinning itself into a drill. It spiraled towards Naruto at incredible speed, and he found that he could not dodge in time. At the last second, he channeled his Scorch mode in a desperate attempt at defense. The impact slammed Naruto into the wall behind him, and he felt the air leave his lungs in a rush. The blood had managed to extinguish his fire mode, but most of the force had been stopped. Although that's not to say that it didn't hurt like hell. Gasping for breath, Naruto fell to his knees and looked at the girl. How can I get her? My fire goes out and she can dodge my wind attacks. Kurama said I can combine the two elements, but wouldn't she just dodge my scorch blades as well? I need to attack faster. Wait, that's it. Forcing himself to his feet, he channeled his wind chakra into a drill very similar to the one he had just been hit with. Pulling Kurama's fire into his right hand, he turned the heat up as high as he could manage before extending both hands and releasing both attacks at the same time. His drill made out of wind fused with the burst of fire, resulting in an intense blaze that spun at great speed straight at the girl using blood. Due to his inexperience, Naruto's drill wasn't quite as fast as the water one, and the girl had just enough time for one final jutsu. Water release. Water prison. Blood rose up and encased the girl in a protective shell as she attempted to shield herself from the flames. Her efforts proved to be useless, however, as the combined power of Naruto's attack managed to drill straight through the water bubble as well the poor girl's chest. She coughed out some of her own blood before slumping over dead. That last attack had drained most of Naruto's reserves, which wasn't good. He looked around warily, trying to see if any other fighters were going to attack him. As far as he could tell, there were only 2 other fighters remaining, and they were busy trying to kill each other. Seeing a chance to take both of them by surprise, Naruto drew upon the very last of his chakra and molded it into 2 very thin but fast drills of wind. He focused on making them spin as fast as he could while keeping them thin. When he was satisfied, he fired them both at the last fighters while also adding more fire chakra to his wind. The sheer speed of his attack took everyone by surprise. Not just himself, but the spectators and Akari too, although most importantly it had caught his adversaries off guard as well. Both of them died at the same time, with fiery drills burning out their hearts. Exhausted, Naruto fell to the ground, praying that the ordeal was finally over. A thunderous applause could be heard as the audience actually stood up in ovation. His brief feeling of disgust was washed away by his returning numbness. This time, however, Naruto almost felt cold, as if the heat of his body had left him along with his feelings. Why was he so cold? Congratulations, brat, you win this event. Oh, and by the way, I was lying when I said the winner gets to leave. Akari let out a highly amused laugh. You actually get to graduate and fight against our adult fighters, seeing that you killed the last of our young ones. The cold was suffocating and the numbness had starting to eat away at him. Naruto could feel himself being carried in a detached way. He found himself deposited into a very large cell with a lot of adults in it. Okay, brat, all adults share one cell. The walls, floor, ceiling and the bars are all reinforced with seals, but the best deterrent against escaping we have is the other fighters. If someone tries to escape, the others will get punished, to which stops most attempts before we even have to step in. No killing in the cell, but other than that, anything goes. Even if you are injured, you will have to fight. The number of fighters picked may vary from time to time. Like 3 fighters in with only 1 winner, for example. Naruto heard it all but gave no sign that he had understood anything. Looking around slowly, he saw 5 distinct groups as one of the adults in the cell called out to him, "Hey kid, what village you from?" At the question, all the groups turned to see their new cellmate. Konoha, he whispered out in a stammer. This new cold sensation was eating away at him. He almost felt as if his mind was slowly dying. The group standing on Naruto's left approached him and a woman knelt down next to him. She was short, with black tresses that framed her pretty face. She gave him a small smile and asked, "Hey there, I'm Makoto Uchiha. These 5 people with me are all from Konoha. What's your name?" "Naruto Uzumaki," he replied in a whisper, looking at the ground. Naruto missed the shocked look pass over Makoto's face. He also missed the other group members exchange significant glances with one another. He did not miss the small sniff that Makoto gave or the words that followed them. "I'm sorry, Naruto. God, I'm so sorry. We all failed you and let you down. I guess you must hate us for how the village treated you, but I want you to know that we all feel horrible about it now. I'm just so happy that you are alive. Everyone thought you were dead." Naruto was still gazing at the ground, trying to soothe the sudden war of emotion that had flared up inside of him. Cold and numb were fighting against anger, relief and a terrible sadness, and Naruto was overwhelmed by it all. It was a testament to how much Naruto was fighting for control of himself that he didn't react with hostility when Makoto's arms encircled him, pulling him into a hug. His first hug, an actual real hug. "Please, I hope you can forgive me, Naruto. I failed you once, but I swear I won't ever fail again," she whispered into his ear. Perhaps it was the fact that Naruto was receiving, for the first time, an embrace that wasn't aggressive, or maybe it was the fact that for the first time someone had apologized and asked him for forgiveness. Or possibly it was the simple fact that he was no longer alone. Maybe it was all 3, but Naruto felt the cold leave him and feeling returned to his limbs. He slowly lifted his arms and returned the hug, quite tentatively, almost as if he expected to be scolded for it. When he wasn't and Makoto's arms tightened in response to his embrace, he felt his walls come down. Those carefully constructed barriers designed to stop him from feeling sad or disgust, to keep him strong. They all crumbled and he sobbed into Makoto's shoulder. He was still as silent as the grave, but he was finally letting himself feel once again. The pain ached in his chest, but there was also strange warmth there as well. Makoto felt a strange clenching in her chest as she gazed down at the boy sleeping with his head on her lap. Naruto had silently sobbed himself to the point of exhaustion. "This boy, I can't believe he's alive. The whole village had given up on him and he was here the entire time. I can't fail this time." It had been roughly a year since Makoto's abduction in addition to the pit. Before her disappearance, she had been living with the guilt that she had failed her friend Kushina. Add the fact that she felt a failure as a mother to Sasuke, and Makoto's mental state had not been the best. A depressed condition made her a far too easy target to kidnap as she walked nearby the village walls. She was roused from her thoughts by a whispered but frantic conversation by her fellow Leaf members. How could this happen? How is he alive?" asked Koba. He was a short but stout man with the red tattoos that marked him as an Inuzuka. He was bobbing up and down in excitement. "I don't know, but we have to keep him that way," replied Hitomi, her white eyes shining with determination. "We all know his history now. If it's the last thing I do, I will see him back to Konoha. I swear it on my Hyuga pride." Hitomi lowered her gaze to Naruto's face. A lopsided smile graced her features as she did so. "Well said, Hitomi. I suggest we don't mention his history again. It's too volatile for others to know. However, the will of fire burns in all of us and we have to preserve those flames with Naruto here," Kato said in response to Hitomi's words. Kato was a man of average height but broad shoulders, indicative of the physical training he did with his buddy Might Guy. His most defining feature was that he had a unique scar over the left side of his face, as if someone had dragged his face along gravel with a lot of force. Kato, and by extension the other Leaf Shinobi, knew that Naruto would have more enemies than he could possibly imagine. With the power of Uzumaki blood and the talent of his father, Naruto could quite possibly become the most targeted ninja of Konoha's history. They couldn't let that information out. Kato and Hitomi have the right of it. I could not call myself a proud member of our village without at least gaining Naruto's forgiveness. I owe him that much at least," Sora stated with a hint of shame in his voice. He looked at the ground, unable to meet anyone's eye as he recalled the harsh words and glares he would often send the demon brat in his ignorance. Muda had remained silent throughout this discussion thus far but gave his thoughts in the short and logical Aburame way. "I agree with you all, our goal is set. Muda knew that his group had all resolved themselves to saving this poor boy from his terrible circumstances even at the cost of their own lives. Makoto herself didn't say anything, but when she bent down and delivered a soft kiss to Naruto's brow, they had their answer. A strange feeling of contentment flowed between group members. They knew they would die, but now they had a common goal, one that was far more important than merely fighting for oneself. The group all fell into a companionable silence, knowing that they all felt the same. Naruto was in his mindscape, deep thought. Leaf villagers, huh? Makoto said everyone felt bad about what they did. Is she telling the truth? While Naruto didn't have a concrete answer to that, he knew that his gut was telling him that she was trustworthy. She hugged me. Why did it feel so good? How did she stop the numbness? How can I feel better than I have in a long time after just one hug? All this time I thought I was stronger by not feeling anything. So why do I feel so good right now? No matter how long he analyzed her actions, he couldn't understand why one simple move had disarmed him so thoroughly. I believe it's what you humans call empathy. She truly knows that you have suffered and wishes to help you. The fact that you hadn't gotten a hug before is probably another reason why she affects you so. Stated Kurama. He was delighted that Naruto had finally started the process of opening up and was also pleased that there was now someone else to help him train his host. Even though she is an Uchiha, I do not dislike this woman as much as the rest of her clan. I have a unique ability to sense malicious intent, which gives me some measure to sense attacks from other people, and I can't sense anything like that from this woman. This is a good opportunity for you, kid. These guys are Leaf Shinobi and should be able to explain things to you that I can't. You should learn all you can. Naruto nodded in agreement and focused on leaving his mindscape. His eyes opened to see Makoto's face looking down at him. She wore an expression of such tenderness and care that Naruto was stumped. No one had ever looked at him like that before, like they cared. Did you have a nice nap? I don't know if you recall what I said earlier, but my name's Makoto. I am sorry for not being able to see the boy from the beast, and I feel ashamed at my actions. I hope you can forgive me, and I would like to be your friend. Makoto took it slow. She wanted to know many things, but overwhelming Naruto with questions might not be the best idea. Instead, she settled for smiling at him with as much warmth as she could muster. Naruto's gut was telling him that she was being honest here, and there was still a small spark of that happy-go-lucky kid inside of him. It just had to escape the numbness. Looking her in the eyes, he whispered, I think you're telling the truth. I would like a friend, but I also need to get stronger. Can you help me? Makoto, taking the fact that Naruto spoke in whispers in her stride, merely turned her smile into a grin and replied, Of course I can. We will all help you as much as we can. Following this short discussion, Makoto questioned Naruto about his abilities, and he explained about his fire mode and new wind powers. She was quite shocked at his progress, as well as the fact that he did all this without hand signs. He learned how to fly before learning how to walk. To just jump straight into nature transformation attacks without hand signs makes him a genius. Her shock at his ability was nothing to the astonishment she felt when Naruto explained that not only was the nine-tailed fox helping Naruto, but that he was his friend and called Kurama. Now that she knew his teacher, understanding slowly came into Makoto's mind. He can't teach him hand signs or jutsu because he didn't know how. Does Kurama even have hands? After this very surprising conversation, Makoto began training Naruto in a more contemporary way. She showed Naruto all 12 hand signs and had him practice forming them as she explained what they did. Hand signs help shinobi mold, shape and control their chakra in different ways to produce ninjutsu. Each sign affects one's chakra flow in different ways, meaning that truly powerful or complex jutsu usually need many signs before activation. However, mastering the jutsu allows the body to familiarize itself to the chakra flow and possibly lower the needed amount of signs to complete it. The second Hokage is a good example. The water release. Water Dragon Bullet Jutsu originally needed 44 signs, but he mastered it to the degree that he only needed 1. That means being great at making multiple signs at high speed and accuracy generally makes a ninja better. There are exceptions, of course, but I'll stop the lecture here. Naruto went through each sign rigorously. He went slowly at first, ensuring that his hands were making the correct shapes and gradually getting faster. He also changed the pattern of the signs so that he got practice making them after the previous sign had been different. He was so absorbed in perfecting his signs that he didn't notice that nearly an hour had passed. The Leaf Shinobi had been quietly conversing while keeping an eye on Naruto's progress. They were all surprised at his diligence and perfectionism. Kato got to his feet and walked over to Naruto and asked about his skills in hand-to-hand combat. After realizing that he had no formal training, he immediately started instructing Naruto in the academy-style taijutsu. Kato knew that the academy style was simple at best but provided a stable base for shinobi to begin forming their own unique fighting styles. After teaching him several different patterns, he had Naruto perfect them. Muda was concerned. The cell in which all the adults resided had no privacy. Against one wall was a simple hole in the ground that served as the cell's only toilet. No walls or beds existed, and one always had to be vigilant to prevent being crippled before your next fight. Muda had been at the pit the longest at 2 years. He knew that any weakness seen here was exploited quickly. Muda saw many other occupants discreetly watching Naruto practicing and seeing him as an easy victory. Muda knew that they all had to get Naruto as strong as possible, but he couldn't see how he would be able to help him. Muda knew his strength lay with his Shokaiju and their use, but he had been severely burned with his capture and lost basically his entire hive. Rudimentary taijutsu and weak ninjutsu meant that he really couldn't help train Naruto. I guess I shall just have to survive and take out as many as I can for him before I die. Ever logical like most of his clan, Muda knew his purpose. Hitomi was itching to help Naruto. True, she wasn't the strongest of her clan, but she had skills that could possibly mean the difference between Naruto's life and death. Even though after Naruto she was the youngest Leaf member, she was smart enough to know that she shouldn't try to teach him too much too soon, otherwise he would get confused and forget things. Little Hinata would be about Naruto's age. I hope my niece never gains that jaded look in her eyes. I can't really teach him gentle fist since he doesn't have the Byakugan, but I could teach him heavenly rotation and give him a little protection. The next 3 days went by fairly quickly for Naruto. He spent them training and only became concerned for his new friends once, when Koba went off to fight, but Koba had come back and Naruto got back to training. He was a little standoffish with the men, but Makoto and Hitomi had found a way to worm past his defenses and Naruto had no idea how. He had discovered that he quite liked hugs and the women were happy to give them. A guard unlocked the cell door, announcing that it was Naruto's time to fight. Both Makoto and Hitomi gave him crushing hugs and the men gave quick words of encouragement and advice. Before Naruto could think about how he hadn't said anything back, he was seeing the all too familiar sight of the pit. One change caught his eye, however. Someone had put in a small lake in the center, giving water users a new advantage. The next moment the call to fight came through and his newest opponent charged across towards Naruto. Taking a second to size him up, Naruto saw that it was an average man in every way, with his only remarkable feature being a very large nose. Shifting into his fighting stance, Naruto launched a burst of fire with his right hand. The man dodged to the left and went through several signs before crying, "Lightning release, swift death." A thin bolt of lightning burst from his hands and flew through the air faster than any attack Naruto had experienced. He reacted instinctively and pushed out as much chakra from his left hand as he could at short notice. A shapeless mass of wind blasted out and met the bolt before Naruto witnessed something strange. The electricity was traveling throughout the wind before dispersing into nothing. Shock was visible on both fighters' faces when the attack failed. Naruto, each of the 5 natures has a nature it is strong and weak against. Lightning is weak against wind but strong against earth. If he keeps using lightning, wind would be your best bet, but don't forget you can still use my fire. Getting over his shock, his opponent went through more signs. Lightning release, thunder's fury. Having seen the man start more signs, Naruto gathered more wind chakra and shaped it into a large circle as a shield. Several large bursts of electricity hit his wind but didn't manage to piece his defense. In retaliation, Naruto then formed a thin but wide blade of fire and shot it through his windshield. The blade burned brighter and the man had to flatten himself on his stomach to avoid the attack. Seeing that this brat wouldn't be the easy win he thought it would be, he ran next to the lake and started several new signs. Water release. Falling rain. A large amount of water was raised up above them and started down towards its victim. Naruto, having watched the water rise up, failed to notice his adversary perform another jutsu. Lightning release. Swift death, with the bolt hitting the falling water. A great sense of alarm from Kurama alerted Naruto to the danger. Not having time for words, Naruto shaped a swirling cone of wind as Kurama provided the fire. Normally he would let Naruto do it, but time was of the essence and only Kurama could produce the heat he needed to evaporate the electrified water. It was by far the hottest attack Naruto had ever performed, with his cone of flames vaporizing the water just in time. Wincing slightly at the singed skin on his arms, Naruto turned back to his foe. Remembering how he had dodged his last attack, Naruto simply unleashed a large uncontained burst of wind while shooting multiple small balls of fire into the flowing air. Although the man managed to dodge a large amount of his fireballs, he started to look weary. Changing tactics, Naruto held out his right hand palm up and ignited a small flame. Bringing his left hand behind his right, he started firing small drills of wind out. This worked out better since the wind-enhanced fire drills traveled faster than the fireballs, and Naruto scored a hit on the man's left thigh. He fell heavily and gathered the last of his chakra in a desperate attack. Water release. Water shark bomb. Several large shark-shaped blobs of water rocketed towards Naruto and he was forced to roll left then scramble madly to his feet before jumping out of the way of the attack. Naruto shot a small blade of wind with as much force that he could muster straight at his foe. It sliced right through his neck and blood poured out of the small wound that Naruto had created. The man clutched at his neck, desperately trying to live for a few moments longer when he was engulfed in a mass of wind-enhanced flames. The familiar numbness began crawling its way up his legs and Naruto desperately wanted to see Makoto again. She had that mysterious power to keep it at bay. As he walked back into the cell, all 6 Konoha shinobi gathered around in a group hug. At the center of people, the numbness receded and unfamiliar warmth flickered through him instead. Is this what it feels like to belong? Am I truly not alone anymore? Makoto Uchiha was worried. She was doing her best not to show it to anyone, but her taut muscles and twitching fingers gave her away. Naruto should be back by now. His fights don't normally last this long. Has something bad happened? No one has returned, so he hasn't died, he hasn't lost. Makoto would most likely have continued this train of thought, but the opening of the cell door drew all of her attention. The door had swung into the cell and with their group's position, she was unable to see through the solid steel into the corridor. The span of time it took for someone to walk in seemed to last for years until finally Naruto walked back into the cell. Makoto let out the breath she had been holding in relief and walked over to the young boy before fussing over him. She was smart enough to realize that she had come to see Naruto as far more than just a boy she wanted to protect. This also meant that she knew this complicated matters since before she had been prepared to give her life for Naruto, but now she wanted to escape. She wanted to take him back to the village and raise him alongside Sasuke as her adopted son. This little bundle of life had kicked Makoto out of her depression and given her a reason to live in exactly the wrong place and time. Hitomi watched Makoto tend to Naruto when out of nowhere, a strange sense of jealousy came upon her. This is ridiculous. Why am I jealous? But she couldn't lie to herself. Makoto had become much closer to Naruto than anyone else in their group when he appeared those months ago. As the only women in their group, and 2 of the 5 women in the cell, Makoto had been the closest thing she had to a sister here. They were forced to stick together out of necessity and the Kato and the others helped protect them during the night. I suppose it's a mix of losing the attention of my sister and not getting enough notice from Naruto. That thought brought a small smirk to Hitomi's face. It was just typical of her to get bent out of shape by not getting enough attention from anyone. He really has changed all of us though. Before we knew it he had wormed his way into our hearts and we all came to see him as a little brother. At least Sora got that forgiveness he was looking for before he left us. It's only a matter of time for the rest of us. Another problem Hitomi felt was that she hadn't helped prepare Naruto enough. She had only taught him the heavenly rotation as a defense. She could teach him anything else. Kato was the best taijutsu fighter and took over that part of his training, with Koba and Makoto helping with ninjutsu and genjutsu respectively. As a Hyuga, she relied on the gentle fist which, although a devastating fighting style, really couldn't be used by non-Byakugan users, with almost no other jutsus being used in combat. Moving over to Makoto and Naruto, Hitomi ruffled her hand through Naruto's hair playfully while talking quietly to Makoto. Even if others are better suited to training him, I will be his friend. He needs people to care. The sensation of Hitomi's hand ruffling his hair was strange but not unpleasant. Taking an unconscious step closer to Hitomi, Naruto looked up at her and gave her a small smile. In return, Naruto received her customary lopsided grin. Kaito was quite proud of his young charge. Naruto proved to be an extremely quick study and had perfected the academy style before learning more specialized moves of his own as well as some Inuzuka techniques from Koba. He has to get back. Guy would lose his mind at this boy's aptitude for taijutsu. The week passed as it normally did, with Naruto learning a small handful of new jutsus for him to master. However, all too soon, the time for Naruto's scheduled fight happened and Makoto felt the familiar fear grasp her heart. She was distracted from her well-wishing when she saw another man approaching the door. It was Enji Ichimaru, an A-ranked jonin from Kiri who had a kill on sight status in the bingo book. The trickle of fear became a rushing torrent and Makoto grabbed Naruto with urgency. Naruto, listen to me, that guy is called Enji and he is very dangerous. He is renowned for his powerful water techniques. He is titled, Enji the Waterfall. I have no idea how they managed to capture him. Naruto frowned when he received this news. It meant that this fight would be the hardest one to date. Water user 2, this is going to be really hard. Kurama, any ideas? Well, he is going to be better than you in every way. The only chance you have is that you take him off guard and be unpredictable. You will also have to mix our chakra natures to do damage, just fire won't be enough. Makoto felt her boy eased out of her arms by Kaito and before she could say anything to Naruto, the door closed and he was gone. Naruto was in trouble since it didn't matter what he did. Enji was able to dodge or counter him. Ever since the fight had started, Naruto had been on the defensive and what made it worse was that Enji didn't really look like he was trying. Going through his seals, Naruto molded more chakra and said, "Fire release. Great fireball," before adding some wind chakra from his left arm. The raging fireball raced towards his opponent who merely dodged it with a body flicker behind Naruto. "Sorry kid, it's not personal," Enji stated in a cold voice. Whirling around, Naruto began trying to back away before a small, high-pressured blade of water sliced down his right eye. Before he could react, before pain even registered, his left eye was sliced as well. Screaming in pain, Naruto clutched at his face before getting kicked in the stomach and flying away from Enji. Kurama was in agony but suddenly found himself in control of Naruto's body as Naruto had fled to his mindscape to get away from his own pain. Steeling himself for this ordeal, Kurama fused Naruto's wind and his own fire chakra to make a new, scorch mode, hoping to offset the loss of Naruto's eye with more power but also tougher defense against water. The sound of a footstep to his right alerted Kurama and he launched a massive burst of fire from Naruto's right arm. Although deep down in his heart of hearts, Kurama knew that their chances of victory were almost non-existent. Sure enough, even with his heightened senses, Kurama was unable to keep track of his opponent and was taken by complete surprise when another burst of high-pressured water sliced into his stomach. A large amount of blood splattered on the ground and Kurama knew that the water blade had sliced through some of Naruto's organs. Kurama's concentration slipped and the mode fell away. Deciding to ignore nature transformation, Kurama activated his normal chakra in a shroud of red around Naruto's body. 2 red ears formed above his head and 3 tails whipped through the air. Kurama wanted to offset the loss of defense with fire by greatly enhancing Naruto's speed and strength. He is able to bypass our combined scorch mode. Hopefully if I move fast enough he will find it much harder to hit us. Enji was confused, although you would never be able to tell that by looking at his calm face. What is this feeling? This red chakra is completely different in taste to anyone else I know, well apart from that annoying fuck from Cloud. Ah, what was his name? Killer Ant? Bug Killer? Something like wait, does this mean the brat is a demon container? Enji continued to dodge all over the pit, although this was far more difficult than before. If he is a demon container, what happens if I kill him? Will his demon escape and kill every living thing in a mile's radius? Even I can't fight a tailed beast, but I can't leave here unless he dies. I suppose I could let him kill me, however there are at least 3 other fighters left that are stronger than me. It would be of no use to let him win if one of the others kills him anyway and unleashes the beast. Enji was in a quandary. Even though he enjoyed killing, he was not heartless and had never relished killing children. Enji knew the kid was talented, otherwise he would have never been able to survive this long. I suppose I could simply trust in the Leaf's silly wall of fire and hope he gets strong enough to ensure his beast is trapped for a long time. There's no real point in killing him only for me to die by the hands of his beast afterwards. Finding his resolve, Enji focused his attention on Naruto. Several red chakra arms had formed and were blindly swinging around in an attempt to find him. Using another body flicker, Enji jumped behind Naruto saying, "Water release, water arms," and several arms formed out of the central lake restraining Naruto and his chakra appendages. Whispering as fast as he could into Naruto's ear, Enji told Naruto to kill him. Kurama was confused. Enji had Naruto right where he wanted him and was throwing the fight. It didn't make any sense, but Kurama was never one to waste an opportunity. He poured more chakra into Naruto, forming another arm and sending right through Enji's chest. Naruto's body slumped to the ground and Kurama retreated back to his seal, pumping chakra into the injury in his stomach, trying to stem the flow of blood. Time became irrelevant and keeping Naruto alive became Kurama's sole focus. He was concentrating so hard that surprisingly the pain took a backseat. The utter damage to Naruto's body took priority and Kurama only spared enough chakra to stop the bleeding from the ruined spaces that his eyes used to occupy. Knitting organs together took precedence. "Oh shit, Naruto. Koba, get over here, he needs medical attention." Naruto's mind was a haze of pain, but he managed to recognize Makoto's voice. Due to the throbbing pain that was his existence, Naruto missed a large amount of the following conversation, but he did manage to catch Hitomi's first words. "Transplant my eye, give him the Byakugan. It will make him stronger and it's the least I can do here." He wanted to say no, to protect his friend from blinding herself, but the effort of talking was too much and darkness claimed him. Naruto woke slowly, a dull ache radiating throughout his body. He could feel a body laying next to him and he tried to sit up but was stopped by a hand on his shoulder. "Relax, Naruto. You suffered a lot of damage. Give your body time to heal. We covered your eye to give it time to adjust to your body. Hitomi was kind enough to donate her own eye to you. It will take at least a day or two for you to heal, with Kurama's assistance of course. But I don't want to see if that means Hitomi can't." Naruto whispered urgently. "Oh sorry, she only donated her right eye, she's not blind. She just wanted to help you, like we all do. I don't think she would have listened to you in this case. Now just go back to sleep, you used a lot of energy, just focus on healing." Naruto did just that, relaxing and inhaling deep breaths. He had time for one final thought though. "Hey Kurama, don't heal the scars on my eyes. I need to be reminded of Hitomi's sacrifice every day. A sign of the price she paid and my goal to be the strongest so I can stop my friends from dying." THSTA all for now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments.